She's still laughing.
That's so funny. Welcome to 5 Lemons Left. We're the real stuff, the lemons making lemonade. So pucker up, because we're going to be discussing our life's lessons and the nitty-gritty details of our spiritual journeys.
Hey y'all, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Drusilla.
I'm Melissa.
Hello, this is Morgan.
And I'm Penny. Welcome to our podcast today. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Welcome back, everyone. This is Penny, and welcome to the 5 Lemons Laughing podcast. We are so happy to have you with us. Potentially a return listener, or you might be new to us. And that is just, we're so happy that you're here. I am so excited to introduce our topic today because it's a goodie. Are you ready? Here we go. Resistance. When you know what would be good for you, but you don't want to do it. Have any of you ever experienced that? And if you say no, then you are in denial. Don't even know you are lying to yourself, right? We were having this really fabulous conversation leading up to recording today. And so I just thought we would pick up where we just left off because it was really fascinating. And Drusilla, you were sharing some really good stuff. I was wondering if you'd like to kick us off.
I will. So with that question, I just was totally resisting the topic because it felt like, as a spiritual student, that, the question in itself says, if you know something is good for you, ... Well, then I'm thinking, well, if I know it's good for me, then why would I choose otherwise? So then, and explaining that to you, the rest of the lemonettes, I thought, well, perhaps this is resistance, and this is what it looks like when when you're on a spiritual path and you have spiritual elitism. That you refuse to talk about things. You resist talking about them because you know exactly what that means. Mm-hmm. But even when you know, sometimes you still make those other choices.
Yeah, during our conversation last week with Sarah, this topic came up, and I asked the question because I feel that I have been in resistance tremendously lately. Because I do know what's good for me. And I'm just saying, like, hell no, not doing it. And so I don't know, when I say I don't know, that's really not true. Well, sometimes it might be true. But right now, I think I do know. And I think for me, it's the fear of missing out. Like if I take sugar and flour out of my diet, which would be really good for me, I have that all or nothing thinking at times. Mm-hmm. And if I do that and I go on that journey, then I'll never be able to have anything good to eat again. That's kind of where I go. You can relate to that, Melissa?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. And yeah. I think sometimes the resistance for me is just like overanalyzing, running through all the scenarios, being out in the future, like you just were about flour and sugar, and you're never going to eat another piece of cake ever again in your whole life. And I think my ego gets really strong, and almost like, cuts me off at the pass before I can really go down that more spiritual path. It's like, no.
Yeah. I think that's what that's what it feels like to me too. I think, Melissa, the more I think about it, it's like I can remember when I wasn't as strong as a spiritual person as I would claim to be today. And it felt like it was easier to make those tough decisions or to not be in a place of resistance, right? Anytime something came up, would be like, oh yeah, I could do that. Oh yeah, give up all that. Oh yeah, because some, growing and learning. And now it's like just the mere topic of resistance allows my ego to be even stronger and more vicious.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what it's just like, it's just a more vicious fight, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was telling you ladies before we started recording that I've started my Kundalini yoga teacher training. Our first weekend was this past weekend. And so one of the practices that's advised or recommended is to wake up in the 2.5 hour window before sunrise and to do your morning practice during that time. And the teacher was saying exactly what you all are saying. Like whenever you're about to decide to do something that is going to be good for your spiritual growth and development. And that goes into making loving eating choices too. Like it's all connected. The ego is going to kick and scream and rile against whatever that behavior is for sure. And I definitely have a lot of resistance to waking up 2 hours before the sunrise.
So how do you move through the resistance?
That's the
$1 million question.
Yeah, exactly.
Answer that, Melissa, and I'll give you $1 million.
You all heard it. I think it is to acknowledge it, acknowledge the fight, acknowledge the battle that's going on, acknowledge that sometimes I don't know really what path is the right path. And I can just sit in that and get distracted with that. Or I can do a few things. I can pray about it, ask for help, ask my higher power to take it over. And also, I think there's something about like the inner child with that. Like, especially like the eating stuff. I've been there, Penny. I'm going to not eat this. I'm going to eat that. I've totally been there. And I have really been trying to, instead of cutting things out or parts of myself out of my life, I've been trying to figure out how can I love that part more. And,
Beautiful.
So that loving way of doing something or asking the love to come in or giving it to love, it reduces all that friction, I think.
Yeah, calling yourself, oh, sweetheart. Oh, what do you need, little Melissa, right now? Yeah. Just being unloving, and I don't know. I'm trying to remember if I was talked to like that as a kid, and I don't think I was like, oh, Penny, you're such a cutie pie. I don't think so. And I need to reparent myself.
70s, you're kidding me?
Yeah. But I talked to my girls that way when they were growing up. I called them, oh my gosh, you're such a cutie pie and you're so sweet. And yeah, I still do to this day.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, now you just keep reversing that right back onto yourself.
Talk to yourself like you would to a cute little puppy dog.
Yeah. That's true. That is true.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, I can share what has worked for me with moving through resistance. And I still have some areas where it hasn't yet seemed to work, but it has worked in other areas. Anyway, so over the past 5 years, I've switched to a vegetarian diet. I've stopped drinking coffee and most caffeine. I mean, I live in a forest of cacao, so I still have some caffeine. And I've quit alcohol, and not all of those all at the same time, but all of them there was resistance around them, around giving those things up. But there was also a desire to give them up. It's a weird contradiction. Like I knew that my values did not align with consuming meat products and dairy products and stuff like that. And that I wanted to shift to a vegetarian diet, but I didn't know how to make that change because, my food is a love language, and my relationship with John Mark and in my family, like everything is centered around meals, and I would be the only vegetarian one among us. So it seemed like such a hard thing to do. And also like coffee and all the ritual around the morning cup of coffee. And then when I'm visiting with my parents, the afternoon cup of coffee as we sit on the porch and visit, like there's just so much like tangled up in all of that. It's not just giving up the coffee. It's, you know what I'm saying? And then with alcohol, anybody who's ever quit drinking knows about all the enmeshments with that. I mean, it feels like your whole life is centered around like social settings that revolve around alcohol. So all of it seemed impossible. And I had so much resistance, and I didn't know how to give up any of these things. And I let that be okay, is how I worked through the resistance. I let it be okay that this is an aspiration of mine. This is something I would like to have like experience as giving these things up, but I'm not there yet. I don't know how I can possibly make that work in my life. And I just let that be okay. And then eventually, like circumstances, like maybe a book would cross my path that would shed some new, like create some paradigm shift in my mind and the way I held it in my mind that made it a little bit easier to loosen my grasp on that thing. And maybe a conversation with a friend, you know what I mean? So spirit made a way to make it easier and to loosen up the grasp on those things. So I didn't really have to do anything to overcome the resistance except for hold gently, lightly what I would like, and be okay with the fact that I wasn't there yet.
Morgan, you talked about being in your Kundalini yoga class. And I remember when I was in my yoga teacher training too, there was a time where we did a pose and we were holding our strap, and they said, hold the strap like you're holding a baby bird. And it's like, how can you hold the strap like you're holding a baby bird and get I'm like used to pulling and pulling but no, you hold the strap gently like a baby bird. So that's what I'm hearing you say is like you held the process of transforming into your more loving state. You just held it like a baby bird.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to have this conversation because it's a good reminder for me around this whole waking up at 4 a.m. thing. Like I am nowhere near ready for some kind of a commitment like that. And Can
I give you a suggestion?
Yeah.
I give you a suggestion. So I know it's tough to get up at that time. So just try getting up at like 5:30. Start at 5:30 and do your morning practice before 6 a.m. and, try to get it done by then. And then maybe after a couple of weeks, you get up at 5:15 and then you get up at 5 a couple of weeks later. And then pretty soon you're getting up at 4 a.m. And so that's just popped into my head. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. 5:30 sounds doable because I usually am up by 6 anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in that, like I said, I'm that all or nothing thinker. And I think I have to do it 4 a.m. and that's it. We have to start today. Actually, tomorrow morning, I may stay up until 1 o'clock worrying about that, but I'm still going to get up at 4 a.m. And then I'm exhausted the rest of the day. And, and then of course, when you're tired, your defenses are down. And so then the resistance is higher and you do things that are more not useful for you. Oh my God, I can put myself into a tailspin.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think giving up that need for immediate gratification, like I have to be able to do this and I have to be able to do it right now. Like that's rigidity, that's spiritual ego, and that is setting yourself up for failure. Like I think like these things took years for me to graduate to the level of being able to allow them to just fall out of my life easily. You know what I mean? Like that was not an overnight process.
So Morgan, from what you said, it sounded to me like you set an intention to be vegetarian and give up alcohol, but didn't really know how you were going to get there.
Right.
But and you also were aware that there was a little fight going on, resistance, but you let it unfold anyways. You didn't create a way it was supposed to be. You let the process happen.
Right. Yes.
And were there failures?
I did try to give up alcohol a couple of times before I like officially gave up drinking. And, but I feel like they were learnings, not failures. And because now with all of the things, the meat, the caffeine, the alcohol, the dairy, all of it, I'm very not rigid about any of it. Because rigidity to me is also ego territory. And so, I haven't had a steak since I went vegetarian, but I would if I knew it was grass-fed, humanely raised and processed. And if I was like on my period and lacking iron, I might be like, I really want a freaking steak right now. And
you know what I call that, Morgan?
Flexitarian.
Yes.
I think I got that from you. I use that sometimes. I mean, like we went to an Airbnb or a hotel one time. And as soon as we got there, they greeted us with 2 glasses of champagne. And you know what we did? We drank the glasses of champagne. And it was, awesome. We're not like counting our days, like on AA and counting it as a setback or a failure. Like, we got none of that other stuff counted now. Like it just, we're not making any of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to finish that statement, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Today's lesson in A Course in Miracles, lesson 304, I loved it. I was talking with another student on this path this morning, and she said that when she read the lesson 304, there was a couple of lines that really resonated with her. And so I said, please read them to me. And so she did, and they really resonated with me too. So I'd like to share them. So the lines are: perception is a mirror, not a fact. And when I look on let me start over. And what I look on is my state of mind reflected outward. I would bless the world by looking on it through the eyes of Christ. So I just think that resistance, the resistance is just my state of mind. It's me looking out on the world with, my resistance is being reflected out in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can just bless the world by looking on it through Christ's eyes, I mean, that would just be so much. I feel the freedom just saying that, and the ease and the grace. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that with you all because I thought it was beautiful. I haven't been studying the lessons this year, but I have been vicariously watching others do it. And picking up on things that they get out of it. And that's working for me. Yeah.
So what about Melissa or Drusilla? Any other examples of how resistance is showing up in your life that you would like to share?
I was just thinking of that saying, what you resist persists. And I think it could be turned into something really great too. Like if it's a spiritual thing, that keeps knocking on your door, but you're resisting it, it'll still be there, right? It'll be there after your ego does its thing and spirals around it and moves around. It'll still be there.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I just went to a song again by Paul McCartney. Someone's knocking at the door. Somebody's ringing the bell. Someone's knocking at the door. Do me a favor and open the door. Let him in.
I love it.
Uh,
I think it keeps coming up. I think some spiritual teachers that we follow, I think they still have resistance to the next step or to what's good. I think it's also probably a little human nature. And I also think that once you start walking more in trust, it's easier to walk away from resistance because you have experience that things will work out. You have experience that this is the right path. You have experience letting go of the judgment that you're in resistance. So it's easier to move through some things.
Yeah. That makes me think of another A Course in Miracles quote. Is it okay if I share another one with us?
Yes.
Okay. This one is from Manual for Teachers. Do not despair then because of limitations. It is your function to escape from them, but not to be without them. If you would be heard by those who suffer, you must speak their language. If you would be a savior, you must understand what needs to be escaped. And I just think that's true as long as we are in this world of duality.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, Morgan. Yeah.
I like it. But definitely, I wasn't going to speak to this because it wasn't my own personal experience, but that quote just reminded me of a counseling session I had today. And believe it or not, it was about their resistance to a lot of the spiritual practices. And I wasn't going to speak on it because I'm like, oh, it felt so good to do so at the time. But the fact that what you just read, Morgan, kind of reverts it back to me as the counselor, right? And it was very applicable because this person has spent all of her life being an intellectual, right? And so the realization is, yes, the intellect is powerful. It is ego magnified, right? And so the more you learn about the spiritual practices, the more you're able to build also the ego muscle about how to kind of get around it and how to, be a very astute spiritual bypasser, which is what I was able to recognize in her immediately. But that's only because I'm the same way and I experience, which is what this whole thing was about. When we opened was like, I know what that is, but yeah, so it does still serve a purpose. As you just read, Morgan, the purpose of the ego being vicious is still can serve a healing purpose for someone.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, Drusilla, I love it that you are doing that spiritual counseling work and making that available to the world. How can our listeners find you to, set up a spiritual counseling session with you?
Right, just like that. JenniferHadley.com under spiritual counselors, of course, and then to me directly at DJ Tally. And no, I'm not a music DJ, but DJ Tally, Talley at Comcast.net.
Awesome.
And then on the 5lemonslaughing.com as well.
Excellent. And Morgan
Yeah.
and Amanda are also spiritual counselors too. So that's really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah. You can find all of them there.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So, does anybody have any thoughts to wrap us up for today? It feels like we're coming about to the end of our podcast on resistance.
Well, I can just share that currently what I am resisting and have been resisting for quite some time is an evening practice before winding down and going to bed, like connecting with God, whether that's meditating or praying or reading or whatever. I've just been in such resistance around that. And I did a 21-day prayer around that. It's a practice that I learned from Jennifer Hadley, our A Course in Miracles teacher, called the Divine Experiment. But essentially, it's just stating what I would like and repeating a prayer for 21 days with the intention of transmuting that. And since doing that divine experiment, I have been more consistently having an evening quiet time. And it's not been perfect. I've kind of done like one day on, one day off, one day on, one day off, but it's way more consistent than it has been in a very long time. So I feel encouraged by that. And I'm just treating it like the alcohol and the meat and the caffeine. Like, I don't know what the resistance is, but I'm trusting spirit to sort it out and make an easy way for me. So,
Well, and the whole divine experiment part of that prayer is to bless everyone and everything involved in this situation. So I'm hearing you just bless everything and knowing that it's going to unfold the way it's supposed to unfold.
Something just entered my mind, and I haven't thought enough about it to be able to answer once I put it out there. So just want a disclaimer out there. But inquiring minds want to know, is there a chance that the resistance could be serving us in a way that, maybe we're not quite prepared or ready for that, whatever is at the end or whatever, is resistance, is it not sometimes a good thing?
Well, it could be, it's probably a survival protection type thing, potentially, which could be good, could be fear, could be love, could be fear. If you think there's only two emotions, love or fear, is it fear? Is it love? I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah. I would say if you think about resistance in training, resistance is necessary. So, and if you think about the biodome where the trees didn't grow right because they didn't have enough wind to strengthen them so they would grow straight and tall. So I would say absolutely resistance is a good and necessary part of our spiritual and personal evolution. And that's my theory anyway.
I like that, Morgan. Thanks for pointing that out. I think they took bumblebees up into the space station too, and they studied them without any gravity, and the bumblebees all died because they needed gravity, that resistance to live. They couldn't handle living without it. And so that's a really good point. What'd you say, Morgan or Melissa?
That's beautiful too. Thinking of nature that way, giving us that lesson. And I think it goes also back to just not judging, just knowing it's coming up for a reason.
Yeah. Just welcoming every experience and loving ourselves through every experience. I think it's all neutral, and where it gets sticky and tricky is when we start judging ourselves and shaming ourselves and stuff, guilting ourselves when the resistance shows up and maybe we don't take the course of action that we would prefer to have taken.
And I think you can talk to it just like Penny was talking to, the little voice. I think you can also say with curiosity, you can talk to it like, oh, look at, here's resistance. I wonder what this is about.
Yeah.
It's such a different way than, oh my God, I'm feeling resistance again. God dang it. Can I just go through this? It's just having that curiosity and being more loving with yourself, no matter if you have the answer or not.
Because it goes back to, it's part of your curriculum and what you came here to teach. You have to move through that. Like I remember going through my period just a few months ago that I shared with you all, where I was not even having my morning quiet time. And I was so judgmental of myself. Like, here I am just being so lazy. I'm not doing anything. And then when I shifted from the self-judgment and self-recrimination about it to just accepting it, and then I could see that it was for my good. It was like, there was good in it. So yeah, it's all necessary and helpful.
Agreed.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Penny's Post-its.
Let's see what you got.
Yeah. So I have to just build on what was just said, welcome every experience, welcome every experience and welcome it all
with love.
With love. God, I don't even know what I'm writing.
Penny has resistance to her own Post-it.
You had a little resistance there, Penny. With love. It's the word.
Yeah. And then set the intention and then let it flow. Just let it go. Let it flow. Unfold. Let it unfold. Shit. Well, I'm trying to read backwards, you guys, and it's hard. I'm just going to let you guys read it.
That's so
okay. So I'm passing it over to you, Morgan. Okay. Bring it home, baby.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We are still missing our beloved Amanda. We hope to welcome her back next week. Thank you to all of our listeners. We love you. And check us out on our website, 5lemonslaughing.com. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places where you can find podcasts. We are there. So thank you. We love you. We'll see you next week.
Awesome. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.